Greetings, my friends. I want to thank you all for subscribing. I want to thank all of my channel members for supporting me in this endeavor to save pop culture. And if you are not subscribed, please consider supporting this channel. We need you. Thank you. My friends, I have said it for years now, Disney is no longer a for-profit company, and now we finally have analytical and mathematical proof of the claim I've been making. As part of their bid to gain board seats, yesterday Nelson Peltz and Trian Fund Management released a devastating attack against Disney in the form of a 130-page document detailing in painstaking fiscal detail how Disney under Bob Iger has been a spectacular failure for investors and fans alike. This is no rumor. This is not anecdotal from a source who overheard something. This is a document jam-packed with hardcore analysis of the facts on the ground, tracking Disney's decline across a stunning variety of metrics, and it paints a horrific picture of massive financial losses in the Magic Kingdom. Any investor who reads this extensive document should be seriously disturbed at how much money Disney has flushed away in pursuit of their public re-education camp programming, their insane obsession with DEI madness, their dedication to being a mouthpiece for the LGBTQIA-MOUSE community, and their nigh unto suicidal dedication to hiring unqualified and inexperienced production staff who make garbage movies and shows unfit for human consumption. All of these are more sins against the consumers than the investors, except insofar as an entertainment company lives or dies on whether or not they're entertaining. And resoundingly, fans have told Disney that they're failing by staying at home and unsubscribing from Disney+. Sadly, the Disney board and Bob Iger seem deaf to the cries of disgust and the bored sound of snoring from former fans who have moved away from Disney's unique combination of rank incompetence and clumsy propaganda. And so the only hope that Disney can possibly be made into a for-profit company again lies in Trian Fund Management, Nelson Peltz, and this document, a chronicle of the pride and failure of the Walt Disney Company. How damning is this document? Here to break it down for you is our own Mexican Ironman. Mike, there's no possible way to properly summarize this staggering amount of failure presented in this document, but let's start the conversation by hitting some of the highlights for the people at home. Welcome to the show, brother.
Why, thank you so much for having me.
What's the primary things that you as an investor took away from this document? Because there's a lot of information.
We're talking well over 100 pages, Doomcock. I have a lot of experience doing transaction work. This white paper, done in investment deck format, is a work of monumental hours, labor, and money. They spent time and money putting this together. There are footnotes on every answer, every statement. It is incredibly well designed. I'm going to highlight a few things that I think stuck out to me as a Disney stockholder. And full disclosure, I am a shareholder and have been for a while. And I was eager to read this document when it came out. And honestly, might be some things in there that might be a little bit tricky in terms of financial terminology, but overall, I found this to be an incredibly easy read. The case is laid out, the historical facts are presented, the case for change is made, and solutions are offered as well as substantiation for why those solutions are needed and why they would work.
Absolutely. The way that they displayed the rise and fall of Disney's prosperity, calling out the individual board members, including Iger, like how long their tenure was and how the Stark has performed under their tenure. It's a lot of red ink, a lot of minus signs, a lot of humiliation, and billions of dollars of company value lost, squandered, flushed away.
And speaking of that, for me, I'll just go through the handful of things in no particular order that stood out. One of them that was prominent had to do with the Fox deal, the purchase of the Fox acquisition, and how so much money had been spent on that, so much capital had been invested, and yet so little has come from that. There was also criticism and reporting, which I was unaware of, about how much of a bonus compensation that Iger got when that deal happened. His compensation shot through the roof. And yet we know, and those of us who are fans of entertainment, that Fox acquisition went nowhere. We have not harvested. In fact, I think I was on your channel on multiple shows wondering what would happen to the Orville in the middle of that Fox Hulu acquisition talk. And so that featured prominently in the report. The second thing that was in the Tryon report that came out is what you were talking about with that board. They really went through a report card of board member by board member and how they have either no experience, limited experience, or they have basically gone along with whatever the company wanted to do and have had no oversight or no constructive or important involvement in any aspects of what happens at the Disney company, whether it be parks, whether it be studios, or whether it be any other linear broadcast work. And I found the report card to be very, very damning and the data to be compelling. Did you see that as well?
Yeah, I absolutely did. It was it was stunning. The professional level of detail, the insider knowledge. These guys, Iger and the board are trying to sell these guys as, empty suits, activist investors who are just, bitching because of a personal grievance or because of, past slights or being denied seats on the board out of pettiness. The simple fact of the matter is they have the math on their side. And I don't see how any investor could take a look at what Nelson Peltz and Tryon Fund Management and Jay Rasulo were laying out in this document and not be absolutely alarmed, not simply upset, but alarmed at this trend. And, one of the key things that I took away was, they point out, well, Disney, just because they got the stock up a little bit from the, gutter of, 70 something dollars a share, that it's making a turnaround, they point out that it is still underneath the peaks that the stock and the market cap used to be back in the heyday before Iger and the board started all these shenanigans and investors just lost their shirts.
Right. I mean, net, we're no better off than we were a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. The third comment, my third point was going to be the point you just brought up, which is that statistically and mathematically, return on earnings, use of capital, dividends, everything is flat to negative. In fact, there was one chart, which I found incredibly amusing, given all the reporting that you do on your channel with Paramount and other places, is that basically every company that there's a metric to compare Disney to has outperformed Disney. The only companies that Disney has done maybe a better job in some market segments like studios was Paramount and Warner Brothers. And we know what's happened with DC there, and we know what's happened with Paramount with Star Trek there. I mean, if I'm Bob Iger, I'm not giving myself a pat on the back. Gee, Bob, you did better than Star Trek at Paramount.
I know, Star Trek is deader than that Tauntaun in Empire Strikes Back at this point, and it ain't keeping anybody warm.
The fourth thing that stood out for me was that there was literally zero discussion in the entire 130-page deck about any of the politics, any of the social stuff. There wasn't anything about all the lawsuits that the Reedy Creek situation, all of the other all the legal problems and issues which they could have brought up. They were able to produce a report that is astoundingly amazing without even have to going into all of the legal problems, which we know that they've created problems that on the legal front, whether it's Gina Carano, whether it's Reedy Creek and the tax districts, whether it's their frivolous First Amendment stuff in Florida, they never even got into any of the lawsuits because, which by the way, I think is some of the most reprehensible things that have happened under the Iger's tenure, but they didn't even bring that up. And then the fifth thing that to me really stood out is how strong is the credibility of what they've been able to do at a company. So when Nelson Peltz is putting himself and Jay out there, not only are they making the case for the great work that they've done at Disney, where by the way, Jay Rasulo was there for 3 decades. Nelson has been involved in a variety of companies. Not only did they make the case of their resumes, they were able to cite companies that, hey, even when we went in and worked with these other companies that maybe didn't want Tryon in the beginning, they've got letters of reference and they were footnoting comments and recommendations saying they turned out to be great additions to the board, which I found that to be amazing. And the last little, I'll call it maybe my sixth little pet peeve or 6th point that I picked up, You know, when Bob says that there are two things that Bob has said in interviews that really bothered me as an investor, as a shareholder. One of them is that he said that there were two statements. One statement was that we have given Nelson his time and due and da da da. Well, it turns out reading the report, Nelson provided receipts. They basically have had almost no interaction with them. There were supposedly like 20, 25, some number of meaningful interactions. Turns out there are a bunch of emails. Emails, letters, and the one appointment, the one meeting that they got was 45 minutes and no one asked any questions, and there hasn't been anything like this. And the other thing that really bugged the hell out of me, and this is the last point I'll bring up, is that in the deck, I can't recall which page it's on, but in the deck, they make a comment that we've had this plan and we're now releasing it for public consumption. Well, that means that this plan has probably been out there on Iger's desk. So when he says that second comment that bugs me, that he doesn't know what Tryon wants, it's in this document. And I think Disney has had it for a long time and they've been sitting on it. And as Nelson mentioned, some of the things that were in this document, they've actually implemented since probably they've even had this document. Now that's wild speculation, and I don't, want to do too much of that here on your channel. But as an investor who's listening to Bob tell me things, I have to think that Bob is being disingenuous. And in fact, in pages 122 to 125 of this, there are 3 pages full of statements that either Iger's made or the Disney company has made to investors, and then Tryon with receipts counters with what we would call the truth. And so when I look at this document, I sat back, doomcock, in my chair, and I was like, this is what I want. This is what we want. This is the company that I want. This is the direction I want, so that someday when I'm old and really gray, that my grandkids will have something left of Disney to enjoy the way I did when I was a little 7-10-year-old kid going to Disneyland for the first time.
Yeah, you and me both. We want the same thing. We want the culture of Disney to recover from this sickness that has afflicted it and to get back to entertaining America and bringing up kids with the proper values. But I tell you, what you're essentially saying here is that omitting any mention of the issues regarding lawsuits or, the culture war problem that Disney has, even admitting that, it's 130 something pages, and you're saying that 130 pages are not enough to adequately chronicle all the problems in the Disney Magic Kingdom. It's
frankly, as someone who's prepared not decks like this is Doomcock, I think hundreds of thousands of hours of staff time and labor and cost went into producing this document. It is phenomenal. It is amazing. It is literally a blueprint of what's gone wrong and what direction to go in for the company. And if this board allows its investors, and if the institutional investors that are holding this stock do not get behind what Tryon wants to do, then that means in large measure, I have to sit back as a shareholder and wonder if all hope is lost.
Yeah, it's almost like if the investors ignore this, they do so at their own risk, and they kind of deserve what they're getting if they vote against Rasulo and Peltz, because this is kind of Disney's last hope. It's quite clear. This is spelling out Disney's last hope. They have a clear plan.
I feel like we're looking at, on your channel and your videos and other channels and other people, we're looking at Disney as the Titanic, and here's Nelson coming before the ship has sunk, before lifeboats are deployed, with a fleet and armada and lifeboats and everything ready, and everyone can be saved. That is what I read in this document. It is tactical and strategic in its writing, and it's a brilliant piece of work. And if I were Bob Iger, I would literally take this, I'd call a meeting of the management team, the board, and say, look, everybody, we're bringing these guys on, and we're going to go do this, because this is what this company was made to do. And I encourage all of your listeners, Doomcock, your hundreds of thousands of subscribers, to after they watch this video, I encourage them to maybe read this for their own consumption, and to learn about that. It's all hope is not lost. A plan exists, and that plan is here, and it's the one that you're covering today on this video.
Thank you, Mike. They need to spread word of restorethemagic.com. They need to spread that white paper around. They need to spread this video around. This is Disney's last hope. And if you care anything about Disney's legacy as a fan, or if you care about Disney's financial health as an investor, you need to read this document. You need to spread it far and wide before it is too late. Thank you, Mike. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us this afternoon. From the center of the earth, this is Victor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry.
Ha 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 ha.